there, my name is Tim Walter. I'm a house healer and alternative life coach. Today I'm going to be talking to Neil Fellows, who runs an organisation online called Total Wellness Club. Total Wellness Club is a portal for various practitioners that exercise in well-being, so all sorts of modalities. I'm a part of Total Wellness Club, but I wanted to take this opportunity to speak to Neil to find out more about what he believes Total Wellness Club is, why he set it up, and what's his personal story about well-being.
So what I want is if you could tell us a little bit about Total Wellness Club and about why you set it up in the first place. How long has it been going? What's it all about? Just some general background information, perhaps.
Yeah, so Total Wellness Club really evolved out of another business we were running called Seven Figure Back Office. That business grew very, very quickly, and it took its toll on Jo, my wife and business partner, and myself as well. So back end of 2014, Jo had, through the stress of work, had come out in some very nasty hives on her arm, and I was struggling with adrenal fatigue. So we started to look at the business again and say, well, look, if we were going to do this in a different way, if we were going to do this in a way that was good for our health, how would we do this now? So we began to look at what we would do and who we would want to do that with. And that's really where Total Wellness Club evolved, because my skills are kind of with building relationships with people, and Jo's skills are in systematization. And so Total Wellness Club became a business which is very automated and can work literally without a lot of people involved in it. So that's really where that grew from. But if I took you further back than that, my interest and why I began working with the people we worked with through Seven Figure Back Office, and then Total Wellness Club, my interest really has always been in what it helps to improve people's experience of their everyday life. And that grew from my own shortcomings, my own issues and problems. Going back to probably around about the year 2000, I was about 20 stone. I was actually nearly 21 stone. I was obese. I was suffering from knee pain. My back would sort of lock up every once in a while. And I'd be on the sofa for maybe a week, and then gradually it would loosen up. And after a couple of weeks, I'd be able to get back the kind of movement and flexibility that I was used to, only for it to go again a few weeks later. So, during the course of a year, I was losing literally a month, being on the sofa or in bed, unable to move. I also had an undiagnosed allergy to dairy. And the way this manifested was that it would wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning with a nosebleed. And as the symptoms got progressively worse, I would wake up at 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and then at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock with these nosebleeds. And it would take about 45 minutes for the bleeding to stop and me to get back to sleep again, only for it to happen again maybe just over an hour later. So my sleep was very, very broken. And obviously that was having an effect on my day-to-day life and my ability to function throughout the day. And my interest really grew because in sort of health and well-being, because back in sort of the early 2000s, we were restricted in terms of the information that we had. The internet hadn't really kicked off. What was on television or in the mainstream media was kind of limited. The books in a bookshop were relatively limited as well to what a publisher would deem maybe being a bestseller. So your sources of information really came down to the doctor and maybe the personal trainer at the gym. So we were very, very restricted. And if you fast forward that to today, that's not a problem anymore. Information has literally exploded. And the problem that we've got today is actually finding credible sources of information that help us as unique individuals to understand what would really work for us. So this is where Total Wellness Club really kicks in, because the interviews that I do on YouTube, on the Total Wellness Club YouTube channel, are in-depth interviews with experts. But they're not just 30 minutes of interesting information. At the end of every one of those interviews, I ask those experts to leave us with a challenge that we can try And if it works for us, we can continue to do that. If it doesn't work for us, let's throw it out and find something else, because it's got to work for you as an individual. So what we do on YouTube, but also what we do on Total Wellness Club with articles, we're going more and more in depth. We're researching the internet. We're pulling all of the ideas together so that we really understand the topic. And we're looking at what various sources are saying, but we're also looking at where the contradictions are, because this can be one of the confusing things. And when one person says one thing and somebody else says do something else, what do we then do? So we're looking at the motivation behind those contradictions sometimes, and why people may give that information. It might be contradictory. So we're going in depth. So yeah, that's kind of like my background and what got me into this, Tim. But just to finish off, the interesting thing was that when I lost weight, my knee problems stopped. The doctor was telling me that the knee problem and the back problem was wear and tear, and it was only going to get worse. So I could expect, by the time I was in my 50s, I might need support to walk, if I could still walk at all. And it was a case of take the medication and rest. Well, the worst thing you can do probably with some of these conditions is rest. Sometimes you need to, but other times it's not necessarily the best thing. But I went to see an osteopath, and if you imagine the doctor was telling me it's wear and tear, and I'm imagining the wheelchair or the walking stick or something like that. An osteopath fixed that in 5 hours, cost me 250 quid. I now run 10k twice a week and do 5k twice a week as well. I live a very normal life. I haven't had a back issue since 2005, so 15 years, literally. And the allergy to dairy, that was diagnosed by through an allergy test, just through a pressure point on my finger. That was diagnosed within minutes of going in. And I now just know that if I can avoid dairy wherever possible, I can avoid the symptoms, I can avoid the nosebleeds. And I know that if I do eat dairy, I know the consequence of that as well. So these things sometimes are very simply sorted. And that's what inspires me to work in this industry with the people that I work with, because I think the more people can understand how health and wellness can change, that who we are isn't everything. Just because we're this today doesn't mean that we'll be that tomorrow. We can take preventative action.
It's great. I mean, I've learned things there about you that I had no idea about, which is great. Thank you very much for that. And it makes a lot of sense why you're doing what you're doing. What was interesting there actually was you were talking in that last bit about gaining, after 5 hours of being with the osteopath, you basically could see that what you were had been told by the doctor was not going to limit you. It wasn't the case anymore. You said 250 quid and that was that. In the UK, of course, we're very used to the NHS and to a certain degree providing service for nothing, for free. Obviously, we pay for prescriptions. But do you think that this sort of concept of medicine, because the NHS has been held up as around the world as a model for the way that medicine should be, do you think that that's the way that it is going to go, or do you think it is going to separate out and sort of fragment more into, as you say, more choice of treatment, but obviously people have got to pay for that treatment?
Yeah, not sure, but what I do know is I think that the foundation of the NHS is a wonderfully benevolent idea, that there is health care available for everybody. And if you're in need of it because of an emergency or because your health has deteriorated in such a way that it's there for you. And I think the foundation of that is amazing. I do feel personally that it's gone more down the kind of the medical route, because that's the thing that could be proven, and back in the 1950s when it began. But I also do see signs within the NHS where they are actually starting to look at some of these what were called alternative therapies, that they are actually experimenting and trying those, because I think there's a realization that just medication isn't the answer anymore, which is good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that you're a big fan of people like Joe Dispenza. As in fact, it was you that introduced me to him, really. And you know, all of these big, what I would call big internet well-being figures, like Joe Dispenza, are having quite a marked impact on people's well-being. Do you think that that's, you know, is that something that can you see that in the way that your practitioners, or the way that people are coming to you, the sort of practitioners that you're taking on board or working within the wellness portal?
Well, I think that the conversation's changed. If you went back 15 years or so, conversations about anything alternative, unless you were talking to someone who was in that community, you would be met with kind of like furrowed brows, and like you looked at like maybe you were a weirdo just for going for a massage or something, because it was different to what people were used to. But I think even meditation and yoga was definitely considered as alternative 15 years ago. But you've got people like Arianna Huffington, you've got Jim Carrey, you've got Russell Brand. All of these people are now talking about the things that need to be spoken about. And so I think Gwyneth Paltrow, I'd put her in that same category as well, because now we're talking about yoga, and we're talking about meditation, and we're talking about spirituality, and it's all there, and it's out there in the open, and the personal development things that come in with all of this as well, they're much more mainstream. I think in work environments, used to just be the salespeople that got the personal development because they were the ones that needed to grow. But these days, there is much more available within a lot of organisations today than was in the past to help people with the mental aspects of their health and wellness as well. So I think, yes, it's changing, Tim.
Which has got to be a good thing, I guess. But like all of these changes, it's not something that's going to just happen overnight, is it? So, okay, so what does, coming back to Total Wellness Club as a specific, what does that offer to, the two sort of sectors that might be watching this, which is the general public, so somebody that actually is looking for a wellness professional, but they don't know what sort, they know what they feel is wrong with them, but they don't know what to look for. So what does Total Wellness Club offer for them? And also, what does it offer for practitioners like myself? I mean, obviously, I'm part of that. And in fact, we've been talking for your YouTube channel about some of the work that I do. But obviously, for those listening, tell us about those two sort of opportunities, as it were.
For the general public, the opportunity really is to be proactive. And do things in a natural way, because we think about it, would you really want to get yourself into a position where you become ill, so you now go to the doctor refers you to the hospital has you on a waiting list, you're in and out of the hospital having checks, eventually you may undergo surgery and obviously be cut open, and then you have the recovery period and maybe more medicine for maybe the rest of your life in some cases. That's one alternative. The other alternative is to take proactive, natural measures day to day and put things in a habitual kind of way in place that sustain you over the long period and keep you in a really good condition, so that you rarely or never have to go through the medical NHSE kind of deal. So that's what it offers, really. It's an opportunity to be proactive and look at things in a natural way, so that we can prevent illness that doesn't need to be prevented. Because there are things out there like diabetes. There are things, people are suffering from cancers that maybe they don't need to be suffering from. If we were to increase, let's say, just the portion of green on our plate at every meal time, if we were to have smoothies maybe or juices once a day or once or twice a week, we could make a significant difference in our health. If you look at the other side of this, the exercise side of this, if we were to move our bodies more often, go for a walk, go for a run, go to the gym, go kayaking or dancing, whatever it is that suits you to get your body in action, your health would improve as a result of that. Not just your physical health, but your mental health as well. Because if you're eating, say, too much sugar, it actually affects your brain. If you're not moving your body enough, it affects your brain. It becomes sluggish. So there are things that we can do that, as I say, are natural and preventative, that can improve our health. So that's what it offers the individual. What it offers businesses, I think the most important thing when somebody's looking for a new health practitioner or a new therapist is trust. And what we have is we have a review system which is transparent for the end user, so for the general public, so they can build trust with that practitioner by seeing what that practitioner's other clients have said about the experience of working with them. So let's say it's you, Tim, one of your clients has left a review. The next person that comes along who's interested in what you do sees the reviews, gets an idea of the experience that they could have potentially working with you, and now has more information rather than just your sales blurb. They have more information now that they can make their decision on. And that's what we're really aiming for. It's to just really help people to understand what they could gain by working with a practitioner. And of course, what this then does is it creates a greater transparency about the real impact that has had on that person's life. And they're the stories that personally I want to read when I'm looking at trying something a bit different.
Yeah, so you really are putting yourself up there, or putting the Total Wellness Club opportunity up there as a real sort of medical shop window for people to actually browse through and take a look and see what grabs them from the practitioners, I guess.
But one thing I would just say to them as well, because you use the word medical in that as amongst all of this. When I look at health, I look at health as being something that is reactive. You know, when something goes wrong with our health, we go to the doctor, we go to the pharmacist, we go to hospital. But with well-being and wellness, it's proactive. We're taking steps to prevent something else from happening. I think that, for me, that's the distinction between the two, health and wellness.
Yeah, of course, because that's actually, I see what you're getting at, because I said medical, meaning that somebody that's sort of in their last steps of life might go towards Total Wellness Club for that solution. Whereas actually what you're saying is, more about proactive care and well-being created there. You also do something called Questly. Do you want to talk about that, or is that not really something that you want to touch on at this stage?
Well, Questly is a work in progress. What it does is it gives people an insight into 10 areas of their life. It's a quick test you can take, just like on a wheel, and it goes into 10 areas of your health and well-being, and you can score yourself, and you can come back month to month and you can rescore yourself, and we'll track your progress over the course of a year so that you can see how well you're doing in certain areas, but also overall what your overall scores are. What we're also developing with Questly is quests, health quests. We're looking to gamify how you take care of yourself, to make it more fun and interesting, but also so that you can develop your knowledge and understanding more and more over time in these different areas. So let's say you take the test and you realize that nutrition is something that you don't know an awful lot about, and maybe you realize that you don't eat particularly well. Maybe you might be experiencing some of the symptoms of not eating well, like irregular bowel movements, or maybe you're just overweight or something like that. So maybe you decide you want to learn more about nutrition. So we're developing quests where you can learn more about your nutrition, and you can get kind of an overview of that, and you can go then as deep as you want to go. Over time, that's what we're looking to build. The Questly will become a lot more over time than just that. It can become a complete portal, really, where people can look at their health and wellness and actually track the changes, but also be able to find the things and store the things that they want for later. It could be notes that they want to take, but it could also be, supplements that they want to use as well. So there's quite a lot of things that Questly is going to be doing in the future.
I think that sounds like a really good idea to actually sort of just keep people engaged in their own well-being. It's fantastic.
Just say the URL for that, if anyone wants to jump in and take a look at it, is questly.life. And if you join us now, obviously we're developing the platform, and we're obviously open to hearing back from people during that process to help us to continue to develop it.
Brilliant. Okay, excellent. How about that? A nice free plug. That's fantastic, isn't it? So coming back to Total Wellness Club. Now you mentioned right at the start that you on YouTube you were interviewing experts. And I know that we've had a couple of chats in that kind of capacity. I mean, my work, is there's a sort of a broad science base to it, but it's very well. I mean, we have to use the word, or I have to use the word woo-woo in relation to it quite a lot, because it's very spiritual based. It's very subtle energy and not very mainstream at all. Now, I know from my looking around Total Wellness Club that I am not typical of the sort of therapist that you have, or the sort of wellness expert that you have on the site. Could you give us a sort of almost a sort of a cross section of the types of therapists that you have, or the types of well-being experts that you have on the site that people can gain access?
So it's really, Tim, it can be anything from your physical trainer, personal trainer, a nutritionist, people like that. It can be your massage therapist, it's reflexologists, it's naturopaths, homeopaths, dowsers. It really covers anything to do with well-being. We're also interested as well in the mental health side of things as well, because we also do have people who offer that kind of help to people as well. So we have EFT practitioners, hypnotherapists, psychotherapists. They're all with us, as well as life coaches and those kinds of people. Because the thing is with let's say life coaching is when something changes in one area of your life. Let's just say it's finances, for example. Almost every other area of your life improves, because if your finances are better, you may take more holidays, you might invest more in supplements or diet. So just because one thing changes in your life, it means actually other things change right through your life. So we include people like life coaches as well. It's a whole spectrum.
Fantastic, excellent. And just a quick rundown on who have you got amongst the experts that you're chatting to on your YouTube channel? Because I'm sure that some of those experts, some of my subscribers will find really interesting.
Yeah. So what I've found interesting is to have people who come from different walks of life who can offer us the voice of like wisdom and experience from what they've done. So one of the people we have is Janie Lee Grace, and Janie Lee Grace, in her background, she was a backing singer for George Michael and also Boy George. If you can go back that far and remember both of those, and obviously she understands what sort of goes on in those kind of circles. These days, she's a BBC Radio 2 presenter and a best-selling author of several books, one of which is called Imperfectly Natural Woman. And this is about living an imperfectly natural lifestyle, but looking at the products that we use in our home and on our skin and how they affect our health and well-being. So that was kind of her first book. More recently, she's looking at sobriety and the impact of alcohol. So she's doing some amazing work. So Janie is one of the people that we have. Also have another chap called Richard Tyler. So Richard, his background is in the performing arts. He was a lead in Phantom of the Opera. And since leaving Phantom, he's worked with lots of large corporations, as well as entrepreneurs, to help them really understand the mental side of their performance. And that can be your performance at home amongst your family, or equally it can be your performance in work. But what's really interesting about Richard is he obviously has worked at a high level under intense pressure, 7 days a week, doing 8 performances to thousands of people. And his role, obviously, in a league with something like Phantom of the Opera, you can imagine if he wasn't on his game, the impact potentially that could have on the whole performance. So he looks at the mental aspect, the mental health side of things for us. We have a nutritionist, Chris Pickard. Chris is the UK's first holistic health heart specialist. and he's also a chiropractor as well. It's interesting talking to people like the three that I just mentioned, the links that I notice between what one of them is saying and what another one is saying. So one of the things I'll be doing going forward is linking that information together so that everyone can see that more clearly. Obviously, we've got you, Tim. You look at geopathic stress and the effect of the places where we live and work and how that can affect us, affect our well-being. We have Dawn Breslin, who's a Hay House author as well, and she's looking at the seasons for us and how the flow of the seasons can affect our health and well-being. But as well as everyone I've just mentioned, Tim, we also do interview other experts occasionally who are not out. So the ones I've mentioned are in a core group, people I'll interview on a regular basis. But we've also got other people we bring in from time to time, just on other interesting aspects and topics that we want. We've got Sarah Taylor as well. Sorry, I didn't mention her. She's a 21 times female world champion bodybuilder. So she looks at the physical side of things as well as a bit of nutrition here and there as well.
Fantastic. It's a good bunch. It sounds great.
The other thing I said to him earlier on was I always ask people to leave a challenge. So every month I do a challenge roundup video where, and I think this is as much for other people's entertainment as my own kind of pain. I take on these challenges and try them to try something new, just to see, as I say, what can work. And I report those findings in a video, so they can be a bit of a laugh for people, but also you've got an idea. You might hear this challenge, you might try it, but I might interpret it a completely different way to you. So now you've got two different ways of doing something you hadn't even thought of before. So that's why we do those.
And I'm looking forward to hearing how you get on with dowsing, because I've set you the challenge to basically get those rods and have a go.
I have my rods.
Excellent. Okay.
I've watched your first two introductory videos on it, so that I can learn more about this. But this will be in my in the next video that I do.
I love
on my
doing
channel.
that. Okay, so very last topic, because we can't sit here in the middle of 2020 and not mention COVID-19. So broadly speaking, do you see, or have you heard, do you see that COVID-19 is having an effect on the way that people are thinking about their health and well-being? And I don't mean just like fear-driven, let's wear a mask and all this stuff, but more generally speaking, do you see some effects from that?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to March 2020 when all this kicked off, you would have your usual routine. You get up in the morning, you're getting washed and dressed, you eat your breakfast, you get in your car, you're driving to work, you're doing your job, you're coming home, you've got a routine. Then suddenly you've got no routine anymore, and you don't know what you're waking up to. And I think this was the thing that I saw with a lot of people I spoke to, clients, also people we're working with, and also hearing what was going on for other people. Outside of that, people that we're working with, we're hearing what was going on for their clients as well. And massive change very, very quickly. A lot of stress happening for people, uncertainty from day to day of what's going to happen. And I think what maybe people realized without maybe putting it into words was how well they've kept their worlds together to this point, but now suddenly the hinges are off. Things are happening so quickly, so many different things happening. You're working from home, trying to master the tech whilst you've got your young kids home from school, maybe for some people, or teenagers, giving you back chat, and you're trying to be professional and do your day job, but your day job maybe is different as well. It's not quite what it was before. So massive change very quickly, lots of stress. And it has taken its toll on quite a lot of people. I mean, you look at the stats, the domestic violence stats are up, because, and this is things kind of leaching out of the woodwork. This is people under stress at their worst, trying to deal with things. So what we're seeing is, I've had access to a report, and I don't know if I'm allowed to quote it. I'll just say this without going into the whole detail. We've seen that well-being in terms of values in the workplace was at number 26 pre-coronavirus. Post-coronavirus, that's moved to number 6. So this has been taken over thousands of people who are working in corporate environments. They're thinking about their health more so than ever. They've realized the impact. There's with coronavirus, obviously there's the natural immunity that we can build up. Being in a good state of health, eating the right things, moving the body. Interestingly enough, we talk about stress, obviously stress being one of the things that damages the immune system. March 2020, we were under an enormous amount of stress, and the immune system would be down for a lot of people, lower than it normally is. And obviously there's a potential there for the infection as well. So what people are realizing anyway is that there is health is more important, and mental health, I think, is really important too. And what we're also seeing, I think, as people return back to work, is the opposite of what they went through going into lockdown. They're now going back to work. Some people will feel rested and quite happy, and might be looking at work in a different way. Maybe they're making choices about their future and their career and deciding that's not what they wanted anymore. Other people, have been through trauma, working from home, were relieved to get back to the office. But those workplaces, in some cases, there is a business need for those people to perform to get the results so the business can continue. So we'll see what happens on the mental health side of things as things move forward. But I think going forward, mental health is going to be a big thing.
Yeah, really good, really interesting. Well, thank you very much, sir. That's been very interesting. I'm not sure why I keep calling you sir, but there you go. So thank you very much, Neil. It's been great. It's been very interesting and entertaining as well.